right, just wanted to make sure, can everybody see that? I hope.
Yes, we can see it.
Awesome. Awesome. Welcome, everyone. So we're going to get through a lot of information fairly quickly, but I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to ask questions as we go through this. I am Anthony Rose from the CSU Police Department. I'm currently on duty, and I was dealing with another situation that was going on. That's the reason why I'm late, so I apologize for that. I might have to step out at times. So I also have a wonderful helper here with me, Aaron Frisch, who's going to be taking over if I need that to be the case. So if you have any questions throughout, as it's already been stated, Bronwyn said this, please make sure that you put your questions in the chat and we will address them as we're going through. Additionally, I hope to see you all very soon in person, because I'm not going to lie, I need to see some people soon. It's been way too long. So I'm excited to see everybody on campus. I'm excited to see what we're gonna do this year. But that said, if for some reason I'm talking too fast for anybody, or for some reason something that I say just doesn't quite make sense, because I understand we've got a lot of people, as I can already see, are coming from a lot of different places. And so I'm gonna do my best to talk slowly. I know some of you have been in the United States for a little while. Some of you may not even be here yet. So no matter what, let's work through this. Sorry, they're talking to me on the radio. Okay, so things that we're going to talk about today, a lot of information about just intro to US laws, but also more specifically, we're going to talk mostly about CSU Police Department. So being on CSU campus and the things that we help with, the ways that we assist with to make sure that you can be the most successful possible. So as you see, we are, there it is. Who we are. Like I said, we are the CSU Police Department. We do a lot of events. We do a lot of different things across campus. We have some interesting, fun things that'll come our way, the occasional stormtrooper. We have our bike units that will be around campus. Those are our fully commissioned police officers. We use bicycles because it's the easiest way to get around campus. There is a lot of movement on campus. There's a lot of people walking, and I will tell you, driving a car around is challenging. And so the bike actually makes it to where I can get to places faster than if I was to try to drive a car. So that's why you'll see our officers on the bike. It's a very useful tool. And I'm one of our bike officers, and it's a lot of fun. We have, I'll tell you a little bit more about us in general, but we spend a lot of time in the department. Anytime that we get a report, we spend a lot of time staring at a computer screen. I wish the job was always getting out there and talking to people, but I spend a lot of time writing on a computer. I wish I didn't, but that's a part of the job. Additionally, we respond to all 911 calls. And I'm gonna go a little bit more into this later, but this particular one was a medical emergency. Someone was experiencing a car. You can see the firefighters kind of in the back there, and there's one of our police cars. They showed up. Additionally, we respond to all of our emergency weather conditions is what I will call them. This particular one was a couple of years back. There was so much hail and so much rain. The hail actually clogged up all of the streets' gutters, making it impossible for the water to go anywhere. And so it flooded a lot of campus in a lot of different ways. So we respond to that to try to keep people safe, sometimes blocking off roads, sometimes just mentioning things to people to make sure that they stay out of certain areas. We are also here always, no matter what the weather is, no matter how it looks, we are always on campus. And occasionally, this last year, if you heard anything about Colorado, at least our area, we got nearly 3 feet of snow almost overnight. It was a real intense snowstorm. We get those about every 5 to 10 years, roughly. It's not often. Maybe this year, maybe not, we'll see. But many cars were not even able to drive around. I was not riding my bike that day, I'll just tell you that, but I did have my Tahoe that I was driving around, which was some of the only vehicles that could, because how high the snow was, the vehicles just could not get over it. So normally we have a pretty mild weather here in Colorado. And like I said, we are always here to be a resource to you all as much as possible. If you see us around, come ask questions. little bit about us. We're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And we are full staff, 38 police officers. We're not currently at full staff. We're trying to get there, but we also have 30 civilian personnel that support us in many different ways. We have, our officers are considered peace officers with the state of Colorado, that we are responsible for taking care of CSU. That is what we're responsible for. Our police officers also are commissioned with the city of Fort Collins, meaning we can go out into the city and we can enforce out there, as well as we can enforce what's called municipal law. So here's where we get into a little bit of an interesting, I'm going to go into just a brief amount. CSU has its policies, it has its rules, it has its regulations. Fort Collins also has rules and regulations. And then of course the state of Colorado. And then you get all the way to the United States, right? And each of those has its own rules. Typically, with one exception, and I'm going to talk about that a little later, usually the federal law is less restrictive, meaning that if you just went by federal law, you probably are going to get in trouble with the state, depending upon what you're doing, depending upon some of those actions. And then the same thing goes from the state law to the city. The cities usually have more restrictive laws. And then the campus has more things as well. But there's one situation, and I'll talk about it a little later. You'll know what it is when I get to it. But the other thing that we have is we have an agreement with the Larimer County Sheriff's Office to enforce all throughout Larimer County, meaning that we can go throughout all of the areas. We're not just stuck on campus. We can go and help out anywhere we are. Big reason for that is that our officers want to be a resource for our students. And we understand that while some do live on campus, many do not. Many live throughout all of Larimer County. We also have many properties that exist throughout Larimer County. And in this situation, we have, for instance, one of the things that I'm dealing with this morning that delayed me a little bit is we have what's called Mountain Campus. And that Mountain Campus is about an hour and a half away from where I am right now. And so we've got some officers headed up there to help with the current situation that's going on. So things that you might see, okay? The top left, that is our patrol vehicle. That is CSU Police Department. If you see us, that is us. Or you might see us on bikes and the sort. You might see us in the uniform that I've got right now. There's also Fort Collins Police Services. They're the ones that are the next closest. They're the ones that oversee the city. Like I said before, our officers are also sworn in as Fort Collins officers, meaning that we have the same abilities they do when it comes to enforcement and education. Then we also have the Larimer County Sheriff's Office, which is the bottom right there. We work with them quite extensively. You'll see them on campus occasionally. They help us out with a lot of events, a lot of different things that are going on. And then on the bottom left, you'll see Colorado State Patrol. Now, I give all four of these mainly because each agency, each police department has a different goal in mind. They have a different approach to things. And for many years, I've spent a lot of time trying to make sure that our community understands what the CSU Police Department goals are, what we are trying to achieve. And the one that comes to mind always is education. That is what we were trying to, first, we were trying to help students get their education and understand how to stay safe on campus and understand how to keep everyone safe. So that's what we're going to go through a lot today. Okay. This is our policing model. This is what we do, and this is the heart of CSU Police Department. This is community policing. And I'm going to read this very slowly. I don't usually read off my slides, but this is one that I really like to go through. Community policing is a philosophy that emphasizes a problem-solving partnership between the police and the CSU community in working toward a healthy, crime-free environment. Now, there's a whole lot of things in there. Big thing is we like working with our community to make sure that everyone stays safe. One project that our department is working on right now, one of many, is there's what's called Vision Zero. It's a project to make it to where there are no fatalities, no deaths or injuries associated with vehicle or bike traffic on campus. Unfortunately, a couple of years back, we did have a student that was hit by a car and did unfortunately pass away. And that was a hard time. That was very hard for a lot of people on campus, myself included. We are trying to work towards making sure that we with the community make that not happen again. That is our goal. That is what we're trying to do. We're trying to get to that Vision Zero. The way that we do that is some parts of the group that we participate in is all CSU employees. And some parts are part of the generating the plans on how our roads are going to be built. Some of those people are the ones on how our buildings are going to be built. Some of those are our trails. And so we're getting all of those people in the room, including the police department, who then we're the ones that are going out there on the education side and the enforcement side to make sure that people are doing what we need to. Make sure that the people are doing the best, safest way possible when they're using these, whether they're in a car, whether they're on foot, or whether they're on a bike, or any other form of transportation when they're going around campus, so that everyone stays safe. So the idea is to hopefully make infrastructure, make the roads, make the sidewalks, make all the things that you all are going to be using safest and the easiest to use for everyone that's involved. So that is one of our big community partnerships that we're really trying to work towards and work through. And it's getting close to completion to where we can start implementing it in a lot of the construction projects. And there's some very cool things that are going to come out of it. Now, other things that we do a lot of traffic safety, because we've got a lot of bikes, we've got a lot of vehicles that drive around campus, and you combine those two things together, and unfortunately you do have some collisions, you do have some challenges. So with that, what we're trying to do is to make sure that we educate, make sure we contact people and make sure that they know what the rules are, what they're supposed to be doing. So with that, if you are stopped by a police officer, and we'll talk more about this in just a moment, some of the things that you need to do. That said, a lot of what we do, if we have a situation, if we're stopping somebody for something and it's not, we'll say, very unsafe, many times we go the educational route. Many times we keep it within CSU. And so there's a bunch of ways that we do that, as opposed to going against people's insurance or going against people's driver's license. So we'll go a little bit more into that in just a second. But things that we see commonly around CSU campus, unfortunately, this is not just our international students, this is all of our students, but street racing. If you're going to drive a car, as an international student, that is something you can work towards. Absolutely. You're going to need to get a Colorado driver's license. And we'll go a little bit more into that in just a minute. But street racing is not allowed. And what I mean by that is there's a couple of versions. If you're at a stoplight and you're sitting next to another car that looks like they are interested in racing you, and you've got a nice new car, maybe that you purchased recently, it's not time to push that gas so hard that the back tires or the front tires squeal. What I mean by that is that they start burning out. They start spinning before the car starts moving. That actually just that alone can get you stopped by a police officer. But then also we've got a lot of people that'll drive on college that will decide that now that they've gotten up to speed, they're going to go faster than the speed limit because they're going to beat the car next to them. So this can turn into a lot of different things. I hope it never does for you all, but please don't do this because it is very dangerous. And unfortunately, we've seen quite a few accidents due to it. But it can turn into heavy fines. You can lose your driver's license if you are contacted for this. Additionally, the vehicle could be towed, meaning that it would be impounded, it would be taken away. And there's a lot of fines and things, paperwork that one needs to go through to get their vehicle back. And potentially, depending upon how severe this is, it can turn into a little bit of time in jail, or hopefully not. And that's usually if somebody gets injured in the process, which unfortunately there's been a lot of people injured when they do this. So big thing for that is if you're going to drive around in a vehicle, if you're going to go that route, please do not race. There are options. There are a couple of racetracks that are around Colorado that you can do that are private property that is allowed, but not on the streets themselves. Okay, so please put in your comments throughout. I'm going to be reading them hopefully as we go through. But when we have a speed limit, first off, we go by miles per hour. I understand that kilometers per hour and kilometers are a better form of measurement. I get that. I'm a scientific person, so I understand. But I have no ability to change that. That's how the US government has decided. So I apologize. But we are miles per hour around here. So that said, I have this particular one up here. We do see a lot of 20-mile-per-hour zones around campus, on campus specifically. All the roads that are open to vehicle traffic are 20 miles per hour. The surrounding roads that go around campus as a whole are usually 30 to 35. You got to make sure that you keep your eyes open for it. That said, I'm going to keep talking, but I'm going to ask you this question. Anyone know, so if the speed limit is 20 miles per hour, if that's what the speed limit is, how fast can you go before you get pulled over by a police officer? Any ideas? Go ahead and put it in the chat if you'd like, or I think that's going to be the best option. 21, okay. 30, okay. 19 miles per hour. You will not get pulled over by 19. 20, thank you for that. 25, 20.1. We have a scientific person just like me. Thank you. Okay. Now, 10%. Oh, interesting. I think that's the first time I've actually heard a percentage. I appreciate where you're coming from. So thank you for all that. Please feel free to continue, but I'm going to keep talking. So 20 miles per hour, technically. So here's where it comes into the technicality. A 20-mile-an-hour zone, if you are driving 21, then you can get pulled over by a police officer. You can. Does it happen? Not often. The way that I look at it as a CSU police officer, and many of our officers look at it, is it's a safety-related thing. If you're driving on a road that's 20 miles per hour and you're the only vehicle on the road and you're driving a little faster than speed limit, in most cases, I'm not going to care. If you're driving and you can't control the car and you're going over the center line and you're doing some things that are unsafe, then yes, I'm probably going to contact you because there's other safety risks. We'll take this a little bit differently. Let's say that we're driving in an area 20 miles per hour also, but there's a lot of bikers, there's a lot of pedestrians, all of those situations. If you're driving a little over the speed limit and I see all of that, there's a good chance that I'm going to pull you over for that because there's that extra safety risk. So there's the extra things. So the big thing is being safe and being aware of your surroundings. That's the big thing. Now, I just told you about CSU. Remember, I said that there is other police agencies that are close by. I will give you one example. The Colorado State Patrol. They're the individuals that usually patrol our highways, the bigger roads that run through all of Colorado. The State Patrol officers, those officers they really like doing traffic stops. I don't know what it is. I've worked with a few of them over the years, but they're their own people and they really, really like traffic stops. So I would highly recommend when driving on the highway, especially on the highway, be safe about it without a doubt, but please try not to drive over the speed limit, honestly, at all. Because like I said, they really like traffic stops. So just keep that in mind. Be safe about however fast you drive. Okay. I saw a question that popped up. Did it get answered? But we'll touch base on that if we need to. Here's another question. I love to see this. I love to see the answers because it always helps me to understand a little bit more about our community and who is coming in. And I consider you all a part of our community because you're here to be CSU. You're here to be CSU Rams. So that said, you do come from different backgrounds. So with traffic lights, with stoplights, with these light signals, depending upon what you're looking at, depending upon how you phrase it, they all have a purpose. Hopefully they're at least similar. Is there any country, and if there is, I would love to hear about it. If the answer to my question is no, just you don't have to put it in the chat. But is there any country out there that the red light means anything other than stop? If the answer is no, don't put it in the chat, please, because I think that we're going to see a lot of no's. But if the answer is yes, I would love to hear about it. I'd love to know what it means. I will tell you, I've been doing this presentation for quite a few years. Bronwyn and I have had many conversations about a lot of this stuff. And so far, I'm not going to say it doesn't exist, but so far I have yet to find any country where red means anything other than stop. I would love to hear about it though, because I want to do some research, but we'll see. We'll see. So far, it doesn't look like that's the case. Okay. So red means stop. White colors instead of red in Fort Collins. You're right. Those actually, that's a fantastic point to bring up. Those are actually more for our buses. Those are not places for cars. So if you're getting to a point where you see a white light, you are in a place that you're not supposed to be. If you see it showing, and actually this intersection that I have this picture right here, not too far south of it is a place exactly where you'll see what just got mentioned. And it is for our transit, it's for our buses, not for our vehicles, not for other vehicles, just for the buses. So if you see those white ones, Instead of the red ones, don't go in that area. That means you're not supposed to be there. It's not for through traffic, okay? But yes, that's a fantastic point. Now, red means stop. Okay, next question, same kind of thing. Is there any place that green, or sometimes you'll kind of see it as a blue tinge, maybe there's a little bit of a blue to it, anything other than go for green? Is there a country where either go has a different color? Sometimes you'll see it in the words, sometimes they'll have it in the color, but for the most part, green or a slightly green blue. Anybody that it means something else other than go? Again, go ahead and type it in the chat. And I'm going to tell you, so far, I'm not going to say that this can't be the case. So far, I have yet to see another country that has another way of doing it, but that's all right. If we have another way, we can talk about it. So here's where it gets interesting. And I'm going to ask this question. What does yellow mean? And I always love to see these answers because they're fun. Does anybody go ahead and type it out? What does a yellow light mean? Be ready. I like that one. Thank you. Slow. Okay, good. Wait, possibly. Yes. You can still go at yellow for us, but should be ready to stop. That's a great way of putting it. Yes. Get ready to go. Look and go slowly. It will get red soon. Absolutely. I love all these answers. You are all doing a fantastic job. Stop if possible, so it doesn't cause an accident. Otherwise, go. Yes. So I'm going to kind of go a little bit more in depth with this. I'm going to try to make sure everyone gets it. If you pass the line, go. If you haven't, stopped. So here's what we have. The thing about Colorado specifically, and for the most part, the United States, if you see a traffic light, the amount of time that it stays yellow is based on how fast the speed limit is. So if it's a faster speed limit, the time that it takes for it to switch is going to be longer. You will see a longer yellow light. If it is a slower speed limit, you're going to see a shorter light. The reason for that is because it gives you a chance to respond longer. Because if you're going faster, it takes you longer to stop, right? That's kind of a physics thing. If you're going slower, it takes you less time to stop. So that's why it happens that way. So I saw a lot of fantastic answers. Thank you for that. And I agree with, I don't think I saw any. Sometimes people say speed up. And the answer to that one is no. That's the one that I'm going to say no to. It's not speed up, because more than likely you're already going speed limit. So if you speed up, it means now you're going faster than speed limit. So one of the ones that I saw earlier, and I think that last one that got put in is great, because it is where if you cross into the intersection. So I don't know, can you all, actually, I don't know. I can see on the second computer and see if you can see my mouse. I don't think you can. You can see the car on the bottom. Oh, no, you can. Good. You can see that you can see my mouse. So you can see this car that's right here at the right part of this picture. You see the light pole that is right behind it. Honestly, that car looks to me, now you don't see a line. Many of our intersections have lines just like the other side here that shows where the entrance to the intersection is. So this car right here looks like they're in the intersection. Now you can look closely at this particular slide and you'll see that it's green. So this car is just fine. They can continue going straight. But let's say that it had changed right as soon as this car was where it was. The expectation is that that car can continue through this intersection until they get to the other side, and they're going to be fine. But the thing is that if for some reason that car was a little bit further back, if you don't get into the intersection, if you're not in that spot, if you're not crossed into that intersection and it turns red, you can get stopped by a police officer and you can get a citation for running a red light, even if it had just changed, even if you just saw it and you almost got there. So that's what a lot of this is about. Make good judgment, make good decisions, and make sure that you are prepared to stop if you're further away. If you're already in the intersection, please continue through. Now, one thing that I absolutely have seen in other countries that I love, and some big cities in the United States have this, and I wish we did here in Fort Collins, but we don't, is you'll see that timer that counts down that shows you exactly how much time you have left. We don't have those. I wish we did. They're great. That's an awesome idea. That is something that we need to get here, but we don't have it yet. So unfortunately, I can't give you that one, but thank you for all your answers. We're going to keep moving on. All right. Couple other signs. Now, I wish many of my domestic local students understood these signs a little bit better, but I'm going to tell y'all because here is where we're going to get some good answers. So stop sign. Is there any country that stop sign means other than stop? I've seen a couple of versions of this, but for the most part, I mean, obviously it'll be in another language when in other countries, if that's what's the language that's spoken and written. But stop signs mean stop. You're going to see usually, as you can see in this particular picture, usually there is a line that goes next to the stop sign that shows you where, again, that intersection is. But if you don't see that line, stop about where that stop sign is. And then you can proceed through the intersection, through the stop sign, once it is safe to do so, once it is your turn. So if you've got a 4-way or a 3-way stop, if we get to that point, it is, I always think it's the car to your right? The car to the right is the next one that's allowed to go. So the one that's to the right. So if all 4 of them come at the same time, it's really just kind of figure it out. It's whoever can go safely. But everybody must stop to figure out to make sure that everyone stays safe. If everyone's there at the same time, I've heard this before. I don't agree with it. And some people say the person with the biggest vehicle gets to go first. Like, well, no, that's not true. It's the person that was there first. So whoever's there first gets to go first, but you have to stop first. You have to stop before you do so. We have do not enter signs. Now, one thing I didn't emphasize earlier that I need to make sure I bring up, and we're going to talk about it some more. And I believe I saw a question about this. Bicycles are considered vehicles by the state of Colorado. So that means you have to follow all the same rules, just like cars do. So stop signs, red lights, one-ways, all of those apply. Those do not enter signs. You have to do it the same way. There's a few extra ones on campus that I'm going to talk about in just a minute, but these all that we're talking about right now all apply to bikes. So if you're going to be riding your bike on campus, follow these signs as well. Do not enter, please don't go that way. You'll notice on this picture, there's a do not enter sign and a one-way sign, meaning that if you come up to this intersection, you come to the stop sign, you're supposed to just go left. You're not supposed to turn right into that area. And all vehicles coming from the right are just coming straight this direction. So if you see that, make sure you go the way it's pointing. All right. If you are driving a vehicle, if you are, and when I say vehicle, I mean motor vehicle, things that you're going to need to do and understand. If a vehicle, or excuse me, if a police car or emergency vehicle of any type, that can be an ambulance, that can be a fire truck, comes behind you and they have their lights on, please pull over to the right as safely and as quickly as you can. They may just be trying to get around you, and that might be what's going on. And they might just drive around you really fast because they are trying to make sure that, I just saw the question came out about bikes. I will cover that in just a minute. They are trying to get to help somebody. That's what the emergency vehicles are doing in many cases. If it's a police car and they want to talk to you, then they will pull in behind you. And if you have an ability, so we have a lot of busy roads for our size of a city. I know that there are some cities that I've seen out there that are much more busy than Fort Collins, absolutely. But if you can, driving off to the side, driving off to another road that's a little less busy is helpful. If you can't, that's fine. That's why we have all the lights on our patrol vehicles so everybody sees us. So, stop light, continues. I'm not sure I totally understand that question. Are we saying stop sign in that, or is it stop light? So stop light, if you see a red light, you got to make sure you stop until it turns green. Stop sign, you do have to stop at the stop sign, and then you can go once it's your turn. Pedestrians, this is an interesting thing that comes up. So bikes are considered vehicles, so they have to make sure they stop at those stop signs. Pedestrians technically cannot enter into the street until it is safe to do so. Oh, with a fire truck. Thank you. Thank you. That's what you meant. Thank you. You're actually listening to me. Appreciate that. Yes, at stoplights, it doesn't matter if you've got a green light. It doesn't matter whatever the stoplight is saying. The emergency vehicle is the one that takes priority. You are 100% right. Please let them through because they've got to get going. So thank you. Yes, you are right. Now, other things about a police car coming behind you. In the United States, you're going to see a police car that's trying to pull someone else over. They're going to put on their red and blue lights on the top of their vehicle and the front of their vehicle. Actually, it's usually all over, but the ones that you will see are the top and the front. If they're trying to contact you and you don't pull over immediately, you might hear them turn on their siren. That's a little extra. It's not necessarily saying that you're in more trouble. It just means that it looks like you haven't acknowledged they are there, and it looks like you're not trying to pull off yet. So they're just making sure, or you're not trying, so that you know that they're there. That's why they usually turn it on. I don't like turning on my siren. It's loud for me, and so I try to use it as least as possible, but it's there just in case I need it. Sometimes, not very often, but sometimes you will have an officer that will use their PA system or their mic that makes it to where their voice projects out of the front of the vehicle. I know some other countries that do this more than we do. We use it in the United States sometimes, not often, but usually it's lights and or siren, and sometimes that PA, sometimes that microphone. Most of the time though, it's just lights. So if you have that, pull over to the right as quickly but safely as possible and stay in your vehicle. Some countries that I've seen, it is customary for when a police officer pulls them over, for them to step out of the vehicle and possibly go all the way back to the police officer that's sitting in their vehicle. Sometimes it is to meet at the back of your vehicle and talk there. In the United States, please just stay in your vehicle. The police officer will come talk to you. If you get out of the vehicle, the police officer is going to tell you to get back in. So please just stay where you are in the vehicle. Have your driver's license, your vehicle registration, and your proof of insurance. These are all things that we are going to need. Now, if it takes you a long time to get those, if it takes a lot of work to get into those, don't worry about it until the police officer gets there. The reason I say this is because if you're digging into the glove box, you're digging into some of the compartments around the vehicle, that can look a little odd to police officers, and we want to make sure we know what in the world is going on. So if you do have it stored somewhere inside the vehicle, don't dig for it until we get up and we ask you for it. A tip that I would tell you is that if it is stored in a place and the officer says, "Can I see your license, registration, proof of insurance?" It is, yes, of course. It's in the compartment in the middle. It's in the glove box. It's in, may I get it? The police officer is always going to say, sure, or they're going to say they can, if need be, they can actually go in and get that if need be, depending upon the circumstances. But most of the time, they're just going to say, yep, just don't reach too fast. Just don't go quick about it. That's all they're going to say. Let's see. Once you do that, just keep your hands, try not to be digging into stuff. I know that I've seen plenty of people on traffic stops that being stopped by a police officer is uncomfortable. I recognize that. Me as a police officer, when I'm driving around in my vehicle, not my police car, when I see a police car turning around, it usually makes my heart rate race. It usually makes my eyes get a little bit more dilated. It usually increases all of those things for me too. And I'm a police officer, so I get it, that is something that can come up. So with that, some people will fidget. Some people will try to clean their car whenever I'm there. And there's a whole lot of reasons for that. Try not to. If you want to play on your phone, that's fine. If you want to just sit there, that's fine. Try not to do a lot of the extra stuff. So these are some of the things that you will need. If you are an international student with an international driver's license, those do not work nearly as well in the United States as we would like them to. There's a lot of reasons for that. You as a student here in Colorado can get a Colorado driver's license. That is a thing. You do not need a social security number. You can get it just as fine. Please go through that. A lot of reasons I asked you to is that that's going to help you to understand a lot of the rules that I didn't talk about today because I didn't have enough time. So there's a lot of extra rules, and so that you can make sure that you make the best decision while you're out driving and you make the most safe decision. So please go out there. You can get it. If you are going to want to drive while you're here, you can get a Colorado driver's license. Additionally, the registration. There's a piece of paper in the state of Colorado that you get whenever you register your vehicle. So when I say register, that's the license plate. That's the plate that goes on the front and the back of the car or the truck or whatever you have. It will also come with a piece of paper. That paper needs to go inside the vehicle. Okay, you need to have it. And lastly, proof of insurance. Okay, looks like we have a question. Thank you. Looks like you also have, or you also need the proof of registration. You will need that in the vehicle. You're required to have all of those. If you don't have those, you will unfortunately can possibly get a ticket. So didn't get the info important to the 24th to register my car under my name. Can I drive with the title and insurance under my name? So through the state of Colorado, the individual that asked this question, the answer is you are required by the state of Colorado to get a registration for the vehicle within 3 days of purchase to drive it on the road. So if you purchased it less than 3 days ago, then technically you can. Now, getting the permanent plate, there's also another way that you can do that. You can talk to the DMV. They may have a temporary plate that you can get that you might be able to get faster than the permanent one. So that's what my recommendation would be. If you purchased it more than 72 hours ago, unfortunately, you're not allowed to drive it around until you get some type of a license plate.
An appointment.
Yes,
And
so you have it.
I was told that.
So that said, with the appointment, if you have all of that information with you and you talk to the police officer, they will work with you in most cases. And I can't think of anybody that wouldn't. Yeah. That said, make sure that you have all that information with you. If you have an email that says it, make sure you have access to that email. Make sure it's not just you tell the officer, oh yeah, I have an appointment. No, please make sure that you can prove that you have that appointment. Additionally, any other proof that you have is well helpful to have. So hopefully I answered that question. Oh goodness, we got a lot of questions. Let's see, we got the bike one. We're going to touch that base on that. What point should we stop digging while looking for our documents when the police officer opens the door to exit his or her vehicle? That's a great question. So the thing that I'm going to say about that is if you can't find it very, very quickly, if it's not just a simple pulling it out, just wait until the officer gets there. Like I said, it's not a rush thing. We try to make sure, and I understand that in many cases, people are trying to get places quickly, but for safety's sake, for everyone that's involved, we're going to go a little bit slower and we're going to communicate as much as we possibly can. So I would say if you can't find it immediately, if it's not just sitting there, just wait until the officer asks you. So when the officer gets out of their vehicle, they're on their way up, just be sitting there, just be waiting. When they ask you for it, that's the time that I said earlier to make sure that you talk with them and they then can give you the instructions on what to do next. Okay. Now, let's see. Acceptable, pull out your phone and start recording once. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, if you would like to record the officer, that's fine. I will tell you in the state of Colorado, all law enforcement agencies are required to have body cams. And it's actually by 2022. That said, I don't know of any agencies that don't already have it. We as CSU police officers have our body cams, so know that if we are contacting you for a traffic violation or any other potential violations, we will be recording you as well. It is all right, but you do have to listen to the police officer. That is something that has to be done. You do have to identify yourself as a police officer when you have committed or the police officer believes that you have committed a crime. Now, a lot of people will tell me when I pull them over traffic that they didn't know that it was the speed limit. The requirement to drive on the roads of Colorado is an requirement. One of the requirements to have a license is that you are going to pay attention to know what the rules are. That's why we have so many signs, so that you do know what the rules are. So saying that you don't know is not going to get you out of what it is. That's actually worse because that means you weren't paying attention. So don't say that, please. But yes, you can start recording if you like. That is absolutely an option. Just know also that police officers are recording it as well. So yes, that is fine, as long as you are also following the instructions from the police officer. Police officer is not going to tell you to stop recording. That's not going to be a thing, because trust me when I say we are all very familiar with getting recorded. That is something we understand. So yes, you can. Just know that if the officer asks you to step out of the vehicle, that is something that you will have to do once they start getting that point. Now, this is something else. This is something that we are not required to do, but many officers do it anyways. This is how I always talk to people when I talk to people on traffic stops. I tell them why I'm stopping them. I don't go around, I don't not tell them, and I tell them all the instructions on what's going on and what to expect. That way we're communicating. That way we are making sure that we get everything done. With that, you are not required as a police officer in the state of Colorado to tell somebody. I don't like that as a police officer, but hopefully we'll see some different legislation to change that. But it's not a requirement for an officer to tell you why they're stopping you. I wish it wasn't the case. Okay, we got both of those. And moving on to the next one. Oh, good. This is a good question. Do you have to carry your passport always in hand on and off campus? No, and I would recommend not to. Having another form of ID, so getting a Colorado driver's license is a form of ID that absolutely works everywhere. You can also get a Colorado ID in place of that. It's not a driver's license and it's not as hard to get, but you will need to prove who you are, and you can get that as a CSU student to help to identify yourself. You're also going to have your CSU ID, which is useful as well. So you do not need to absolutely carry your passport. I would recommend not to, because that is a very important document. I would say that keeping that locked up somewhere so that for only when you need to travel. That's the only reason I would say carry your passport. Other than that, try to get some other form of ID to carry around with you, because if you lose your Colorado ID, that's easy to replace, and that's not a huge trouble. If you lose your passport, that turns into a lot of trouble. So please, I would recommend do that. Driving with an international driver's license, as I addressed this before, as opposed to a Colorado driver's license. Many times in Colorado, you're going to see a lot of situations where it does not work. The international driver's license does not work. A Colorado driver's license will always work. So that is why I recommend, if you drive with an international driver's license, that's, like I said, it's not always going to work the way that we as a whole, or you are going to want it to work. So you can get a Colorado driver's license. Please do so. So another question, driving with an international driver's permit, is it illegal in Colorado? It depends on the actions that are going on, and I can't totally go into all of that. The short answer is no, it is not illegal, but it can be. So that's why I absolutely recommend getting to Colorado. And it does take time to get the DMV. That said, if you can show proof that you're going through that process, just like the registration before. Right now, a lot of things are slowed down, and I understand that. But if you can show proof that you are trying for that, that is much different than saying that, oh, I am trying. So make sure that you have some of those emails available saying that, yes, I am trying to get my license. Okay. How long can I drive newly purchased car with just the dealer plates? Got it. So typically, the temporary tags on a newly purchased vehicle are 3 months. Usually you have about 3 months, I believe it's 90 days, when you get those temporary tags till you have to get the permanent ones. I would recommend right now, don't wait until the very end of that to get your license plates, because it takes right now a lot longer due to all of the restrictions and everything that's been going on. So I would say the sooner you can get in, the sooner you can get an appointment to try to get your vehicle registered, please do so. So let's see, I've got a ton of questions and I appreciate this. I want to make sure that we keep going and we don't hold over on time too much, but I want to get through a lot of these questions. We'll talk about some pedestrian stops more when we talk about bikes. Okay. Yeah. Rental car and registration proof of insurance cannot be shown or not available. Oh, if you drive a rental car, what you need is all the paperwork that the rental company gave to you. That is where the proof of insurance comes in. They will give you all of that kind of stuff whenever you rent the car. So that is where you get that information. So have that. So it's not quite the same. The registration, the insurance comes from the rental company, and that's in the paperwork that you have. Okay. So what is the impact of traffic violations other than a fine? So it depends on the traffic violation. Many times, Colorado has what's called a point system, meaning that if you violate multiple traffic violations, the minor ones, you can get your license taken away. If you violate one very severe one, you can get your license taken away with just a single violation. One of those that comes to mind is what's called driving under the influence, or DUI, and that is driving intoxicated. Now, that can also be with marijuana. We're going to discuss marijuana in just a minute for international students a little bit more in depth, but alcohol, marijuana, or anything that can alter your perception of reality. So prescription medications can do this too. So that particular one, driving under the influence, can get your license taken away immediately. So that is, and the other thing, that's one that actually can get you taken to jail because of all of what's going on with that. Because unfortunately, here in Colorado, we've seen a lot of driving under the influence accidents and a lot of people that have been injured and killed because of it. So those are some of the different ones that can happen depending. All right. I'll keep answering questions, but I want to keep moving on since we've got so many. Thank you for that. And Aaron's going to continue to keep answering questions as we go through, but we're going to move. Look, bikes. It's like I knew this was coming up. So 2 questions that I saw that we're going to address. But first off, bikes, as I said, are considered vehicles. They drive the same way. There are a few exceptions on campus. So if you see a bike lane, use the bike lane. If there is a road that is attached to the sidewalk, so if there's a sidewalk that runs on the side of the road, use, as a biker, ride in the bike lane that is attached. Ride in, if there is no bike lane, ride in the roadway. You are considered a vehicle and you need to ride as such. In most cases, as a bicyclist, you need to ride as far to the right as you can, safely as you can. So if there's a whole bunch of debris, a whole bunch of junk, a whole bunch of rocks and stuff like that, it is not expected as a bike for you to have to ride over that. But if you have to go to the left some, make sure you look behind you before you do that, because make sure that there's no cars there so that you don't run right in front of a car. So be safe about that. The only exception that I would say is that when, other than riding in the right side, is that if you're coming up to a stop sign, you're coming up to a stop light, that you are going to be turning left at, or you are going to be going straight. I recommend, what we say is taking the lane. So what that is you go into the lane and go, essentially think about where someone was driving a car, specifically in the United States, our drivers sit on the left side. Think about where that would put them in the lane and be there. That way they can see you the best and they can see your arm. Anytime that you're turning left, make sure that you signal with your left arm. You can do it with your right one technically, but I have 2 reasons why to signal with your left. So to do a left turn, you put your left arm just straight out to your side. To do a right turn, you use your left arm, but you put it up next to you and it shows that you're going to the right. If you're going to stop, you put your left arm out and you put it down to the side. You can find all of this online. But the reason I say use your left arm is 2 reasons. The first one is a bike is designed with the brakes on the right, or they're on the left and the right side, but the rear brakes specifically are on the back. Okay, so, or excuse me, on the right. So the rear brakes, the back brakes on the right handlebar, meaning if you have your hand only on the right handlebar and you hit the brakes, you are engaging your back brakes. If you have your left hand on the handlebar and your right hand off, you're going to engage those front brakes. And I have seen, unfortunately, many times people have used that very quickly and they do what's called an endo and they go straight over the top of their handlebars, and it's a very painful process for them. And it sometimes ends with some severe injury. Sometimes they laugh about it, not very often. It hurts a lot. I've done it once. I never did it again. So that said, that is one reason to keep your right hand on the handlebars and use your left hand to signal. The other big reason is that in the United States, all of the drivers being on the left side of the car, it is easier for them to see your left arm than it is your right arm. It's not a lot easier, but it is at least easier enough. That way they can see you. Okay. There's a question about a helmet while riding a bicycle. I will tell you this, it is not required by law. but it is absolutely highly recommended. You as a student are coming to college to put a lot of money into your brain. Please protect that brain. My goodness. Unfortunately, I've seen quite a few accidents where somebody that has not been wearing a helmet, that it leads to some very severe traumatic injuries to the head and traumatic brain injuries that are unfortunately long-term. A helmet is going to help reduce the chances of a long-term effect. So a bicycle helmet is extremely advisable. Do motorized wheelchairs and mobility scooters qualify as a vehicle? The answer to that is no. Those are conveyances. Those are for mobility. They are not considered a vehicle, but a good question. Thank you. Registration on bike. As you can see, we are requiring that you register the bike. Erin is going to put in our website into the chat. You can register online, but as you come to campus, you can also register at the CSU Police Department. Next week, we have move-in week, and we're going to have people out there and about that are going to be doing registrations. It is a great time to do that. They're going to get you a sticker. The sticker needs to go on the bike. As long as the sticker stays on the bike is registered. You don't have to do it every single year. It's just a one-time thing as long as that sticker stays there. And I know of people that have had the sticker for 15 to 17 years at this point, so it will last you through college. So registration has to be done through the police department. We can do it. I believe we finally got it set up online. Thankfully this year and all of COVID, it took us a while, and also do it in person, whichever one you prefer. But we're going to get our website put in the chat in just a moment. Okay. Real quick, I see about driving a car, or getting a driver's license exam. Should you have your own car? There are some places that will have a car for your drive. It depends on where you take your examination. There are some that will not, and you're required to do that. Just do some research before you figure it out, depending upon where you're going to go, and they're going to give you the information on whether you need your own car. Now, whether it's your friend's car that you're borrowing, whether it's a car that you purchased yourself, that's entirely up to you. I would say whatever exam that you're going to do, make sure that you are comfortable with the vehicle so that you know how to drive it. Okay. Let's see. Oh, pedestrians. That's the question. What violations can a pedestrian do? So a couple ones is we've got our right of way law, which means which vehicle, which something has a right of way. A lot of the time, whenever everyone's in the intersection, the slowest form of transportation has the right of way, meaning that usually the person that's walking has the right of way. But notice what I said. I said when they're all in the intersection. You can actually get a ticket as a pedestrian if you step in front of a vehicle that has no ability to stop. You cannot, it's not that the pedestrian always has the right of way. Many times they do, but it's not always. It has to be, you have to look and you have to make sure that the vehicle entering in front of them gives them enough time. Additionally, if there is a sidewalk, or excuse me, if there is a crosswalk, if there's a light that is close by, or a different kind of crosswalk, you are required to use those. You cannot cross a road at a diagonal. Technically, you're supposed to do it perpendicular to the street. You're supposed to do it directly across. You're supposed to go exactly across the road. If you go at a little bit of an angle, we're okay with that. The idea is that so that you can get through the road as quickly as possible, so you can get out of the way of the traffic as quickly as possible. The other one that comes up, we see quite often, Colorado has a law, is that you cannot be drunk in the roadway. So you can't be intoxicated, you can't be under the influence of alcohol in the roadway. Now, if you've had a single beer, if you consumed a single beer, that is not necessarily intoxicated unless you're falling on your face and I'm driving by. If you are walking through the roadway, just as I've described so far, and you've not committed any of those crimes, that you are doing just fine. But if you are stumbling through the roadway, you can get contacted by a police officer because of being drunk in the roadway. Reason is because we have seen people get run over, and this is usually at night, and it's harder to see pedestrians at night, and people really like to wear dark colors at night. I don't know why, but it makes it harder for them to see, and unfortunately they do get hit by cars in some cases. I think I'm caught up on questions right now. For the most part, we'll address some more as we're getting through, because I want to make sure that we're getting through all of these. We also have dismount zones for bikes. It is an area you'll see things like this where you got to make sure that you dismount, you get off of the bike and push through. They're on campus, they're on the main academic area. They're in the middle of campus and they go from 7:30 a.m.
And in the link, it shows the.
Awesome. There's some extra stuff in here on the link that makes it to where you can see more of what I've talked about and extra stuff that I haven't. But the dismount zone, once you cross that 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday, you got to make sure that you get off your bike, get off your scooter. If it's not a mobility one, that question earlier about it being a mobility-based one because somebody has an injury or it's required for them to actually move around, that's different. If it's one of those other scooters that you're just standing on and you're using it for transportation and that's all, then you have to get off and you have to push that through. Skateboards, same kind of thing. So if you see these dismount zones, step off, get off, and make sure that you walk through those areas. You will know the dismount zone ends because you'll see something like this. It'll just be upside down. That way you can know to get back on. Again, Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. You'll see the signs. There's actually one. You can see it on one of those right pictures that I have up there. They're a little smaller and they're a little harder to see, but they're next to those ground graphics. They're next to those ground pictures so that you can make sure that you remember. The thing is that just being safe. We have a lot of people that are moving through campus. And I know that this is going to happen this year since we're opening back up. Obviously, we have a lot of different COVID things that are going on, but I anticipate we're going to see a lot of people moving around. The reason we have our dismount zones is because of how many people we have moving around. And even if there is nobody moving around, you are supposed to get off your bike and push it through. You can still get stopped by a police officer and they still will contact you to make sure that you're staying safe. Even if there's nobody around, that is a possibility. They might just talk to you and might necessarily stop you, but it depends on the circumstances. If it's a weekend, if it's outside of those hours that I've already talked about, yes, you can ride through on your bike. Just be safe about it. That's all I ask. Okay, so real quick, we're going to talk about consent. I'm going to have Aaron see if we can put this link in to the chat so that y'all can see it. It is, if you haven't seen it, it's a great video. It talks about consent or T. And the idea is that if you treat consent, and consent can be anything that we've got up here. So texting, calling, hugging, kissing, or even sexual interactions with somebody. All of those things are included. If someone does not consent to it, do not push it. This talk about tea talks about how if somebody doesn't want tea, you're not going to force it down their throat. It's a great video and it talks a lot of great points. And we give this to our domestic students as well, because this is a conversation that unfortunately as a police officer I have to have with people. Know that if you push yourself on somebody in any of these ways, especially when it comes to sexual interactions, it can turn into some very severe violations, both in the university as well as by law. So please, if someone does not consent, if someone does not say yes, then it means no. And that's why I bring up this. If you see anything on here, these are a lot of examples. I'm not going to read them all off. But if somebody says anything other than yes, when it comes to especially sexual interactions, if it's anything other than yes, it means no. Additionally, if you've never heard this phrase, if it's not working for this individual, if you are going after somebody that you're like, oh, I am extremely attracted to this person, however that works out, and they are not returning that, there are plenty of other fish in the sea. That is a saying that we say in the United States. What it means is that there is plenty of other people. This particular one may not be into you, which is okay. That is their right as another person. And if that's the case, there is someone else out there. Try for somewhere else. I will give you an example of this. We had a student, domestic student, specifically from California that was in Colorado, and they were a student here at CSU. And we got reports, and this individual was texting, calling, and never quite got to the sexual side of things, but it was progressing that route, that would not stop contacting people, females particularly. That individual, so much so that I think it was about 12 or 14 females called us about him, all within about the same day, which means this individual was very persistent. And when we contacted him, we asked him, so did they say stop, or did they tell you to stop talking to them? He said, yeah. Okay. And we asked him, why did you continue? And he said, well, when they tell you to stop, it means you're supposed to try harder. Well, he got a bunch of criminal charges associated with that because that is not what you're supposed to do. When they say stop, it means stop. When they say no, it means no. All of those are very important, and know that those can turn into charges. That individual, unfortunately, learned a lot of lessons. I wish he'd learned them before then. But all that said, let's keep moving on. Domestic violence is a big thing in Colorado. It is something that is extremely serious. The state, so serious, and I'll describe exactly what it is, but if there's a domestic violence situation, police officers that respond, if it is determined that a domestic violence situation has gone on, we are required by the state of Colorado as police officers to arrest the person that did it. I have no choice, absolutely no choice. I am required to arrest somebody. If I do not arrest somebody in that situation, I can get charges on me and I can get arrested as a police officer. So it is very serious. So when I say domestic violence, anyone in an intimate relationship is how the state labels it. Now, an intimate relationship can be a lot of things, but let's say boyfriend, girlfriend, let's say boyfriend, boyfriend, girlfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, 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 husband, husband, however that relationship works out, whatever that looks like, it doesn't matter. But if you're in an intimate relationship in any of those or possibly more, and there's an extra crime associated with it, the ones that we see, unfortunately, is going to be things like third-degree assault. Someone hits somebody else. Someone in a relationship hits another person, in the other person in the relationship. In that time, whoever did the hitting, we are required by state law to arrest that person. So with that said, please don't do that. Sometimes if an argument gets way too loud, if people are starting to yell at each other, people are starting to throw threatening comments out, because in a relationship, things can get a little volatile. They can get a lot of emotions involved because there's a lot going on in those relationships. Or if someone will not stop messing with somebody else in a way of sending too many text messages, calling them too many times, all of those can be a time when a police officer may be required to arrest somebody. If you are ever in a relationship and you just notice that you're going down a route that's like, there's too many emotions, what I'm going to tell you, what I'm going to give you as a tip is that's probably the time to decide, how about let's go our separate ways for tonight. At the very least, let's go our separate ways so we can cool down. That way we can come back together possibly tomorrow and make better decisions. But again, know that it's consent that's important. So if the other person in the relationship says, no, I'm completely done, don't ever come back, you must respect and appreciate that. If you don't, you can get criminal charges against you. So please keep that in mind. Okay. Other things that we have a lot going on with: alcohol consumption, drug consumption. This is marijuana, and we're going to go much more into marijuana in just a moment. And I'm running out of time, so I apologize. But traffic enforcement, those kind of things. Now, alcohol, we're going to go through this one fairly quickly. The one that we see more often than anything else is going to be underage consumption. If you are under the age of 21, I know there are some countries that if you're 18 or older, you can't consume alcohol. I know that there are some countries that don't even have any laws when it comes to alcohol consumption. In the state of Colorado, you are required to be over the age of 21 to consume alcohol or possess it. Additionally, in the city of Fort Collins, you cannot have an open container of alcohol, meaning that you cannot walk around with an open bottle of beer. You cannot walk around with one of what we see more often than not at all of the parties that are around CSU is those red Solo cups. They're the red plastic cups that have, and I will tell you, I know from my experience, there's going to be some type of alcohol in that. People are like, it's water. And like, well, let me smell it. That's not water. So that said, you cannot walk around on the street. You cannot walk around on the sidewalks. You cannot walk around any public place in the city of Fort Collins with an open container of alcohol. So any of those things. So make sure that you don't do that, because you can get and will get contacted by police officers for that. Usually the first offense is pretty hefty. It's $150 usually. That said, as long as you work through it, it's not a long-term criminal offense when you contact CSU police officers, or when CSU police officers contact you. If it's a Fort Collins police officer and they're only a Fort Collins police officer, it can turn into other things. CSU police officers, we have what's called CSU substance abuse tickets, meaning that we keep it within the university. What can happen is that you will go through a process with student conduct. And as long as you go through all that and you do all of what you're supposed to, and there's no other offenses, no other times that you violate that, it's as if it never happened. But a lot of it is, as I said before, about education and making sure that we do the right thing, making sure that we stay safe. Because unfortunately, the overconsumption of alcohol is what we see a lot of people passing out. Other things, smoking. Smoking is not allowed anywhere inside any of the CSU buildings. We are considered a school, and that is state law. And within 20 feet or 6 meters of any entrance, any window, any of those things, you cannot smoke within those distance. Also, CSU says that you cannot smoke anywhere in the main academic area, which kind of cuts off most of campus. There are a few areas where you can, but it's not in any of the main areas. So if you are someone that smokes, please make sure you do not smoke close to buildings nor smoke in the middle parts of CSU campus. There's a lot of signs associated with that. Now, marijuana use, okay? This is where it gets interesting. International students have different rules than domestic students. I said earlier that most of the time, the federal law is less restrictive than the local law, than the state law. But this is the one example where it's not. Marijuana in the state of Colorado is legal for someone that is over the age of 21 to consume as long as it's not done in public. Very similar to how I described alcohol. The difference being federally, it is illegal still. Now that may change in the, I don't know, we'll see that, but currently it is still federally illegal, meaning that you as an international student have an international student visa. It is required by you to follow federal law. So while you will not get in trouble with me, as long as you are not driving a car, you're not consuming it in public, and you are over the age of 21, as long as those are not happening and you are over the age of 21, I, as a state of Colorado employee, as a state of Colorado police officer, don't care. But federally, they do. We've had a student, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, that unfortunately did consume some marijuana. They posted a lot of the information on social media. This is where the problem happened. They left the country to go back home for a break. When they attempted to come back into Colorado, they were not allowed back in because they found out their student visa had been revoked and they could not come back. And that was all because they had violated that federal law of marijuana consumption. So my tip to you is please just make good decisions. Do not consume marijuana. It's not worth all of what happens with that. If federally it changes, federally it changes. But until then, you as international students are required to follow that federal law. I will tell you one little tip, so am I. I'm not allowed to consume marijuana in the slightest either as a police officer. So that's also the case. Other residents of Colorado, though, have different rules. Okay. Last few things to talk about. Safe walk. Right. Oh, there it went. It's switched. Cool. We've got Safe Walk in as a posted link as well. But this is a resource for you all. If you're ever walking around campus and you feel like something is unsafe, like you need something, someone to walk with you 365 days a year, we will walk you anywhere on campus up to 3 blocks off campus. Anytime it's dark, or off from campus to on campus, or anything that falls 2 points within campus. Usually we'll see someone that starts, you'll see the picture there, the library cube, and then they might want to go back to their residence hall, or maybe you parked a little bit off campus and you would like somebody to walk you there. All of those are options. It's absolutely free. It doesn't cost you a thing. If you would like to use it, it's there for you. 491-1155. Also, you'll see the link in there. You can find it on our website. Last few things, when calling 911, many countries, different countries, it is a different phone number for the different type of emergency. Some countries, if it's a fire emergency, you call one phone number. If it's a police emergency, you call another one. If it's a medical emergency, you call a third phone number. In the United States, it is 911 for all of those. I know I've heard 111, I know I've heard 119, I know I've heard 999. It depends on the country. In the United States, it is 911. If you ever have an emergency and you need to call 911. We respond to all emergencies on CSU campus, medical emergencies. The one that we see more than anything else is someone consuming too much alcohol and passing out. They are experiencing at that point alcohol poisoning and can actually die from that. So if you decide to partake in alcohol while you're here, if that is something you do, please do so carefully, please do so safely. Do not consume so much that you pass out because that is very dangerous. Don't consume so much to get blackout drunk, meaning that you don't remember the night before, because that turns into potentially a lot of trouble and a lot of health issues. So please don't do that. Things that we as police officers usually traditionally are seen as, but CSU police officers do a lot more than this, is that some of these, I'm going to point out one of these, which is suicide. So suicide ideations, suicide comments, suicide threats, or suicide attempts. So if you have someone that is ever saying that they're getting ready to kill themselves, if you know of someone that the stress is too much and they just don't want to be here anymore, please call 911 immediately. Our police officers at CSU are trained in CIT, meaning crisis intervention training, and we spend a lot of time talking with students. We spend a lot of time actually getting to help and know them. We are trained to help people in these situations. We have extra training upon extra trainings to help with this. All of that said, if you ever have something going on with this, please get the resources for them. Many times our officers start off the conversation and then we get them to the resources they really need, get them to the counselor. We're also working on a project to have a co-responder program on CSU campus. It is hopefully going to be used soon. We're getting there to have a medical professional paired with a police officer to help with these better than we're already doing, but that is still in the process. So please, if the situation calls for it, help us out, call us so we can help. Last few things, as I've already said, emergency call boxes. These are blue light boxes. If you are ever experiencing an emergency and you don't know where you are, sometimes people think that if I use my cell phone, that'll be perfect. I'll kind of call 911. But if you don't know where you are, we can sort of track down your cell phone, but it's not very accurate. And if you're inside of a building, I'm going to have a hard time finding you. It doesn't show elevation, and the less signal you have, the harder it is to find you. These boxes have a specific location attached to them, meaning that I will know exactly where you are. So please, if you need it for a 911 emergency or just any emergency, however that works out, use it for that. Also, that Safe Walk program I talked about, it works for that as well. And lastly, if you are very lost, you don't know where you are, you can use it for that as well. Please don't just press the button and walk away. Don't press the button, laugh and walk away. We do have cameras, so just keep that in mind. All right. Things that we can do, we do a lot of classes across campus. Like I said, I emphasize education. I help out with our active assailant response. I also help out with our self-defense classes. The head instructor for that, she is a phenomenal instructor. She does a really good job at helping with self-defense and just helping people be confident in what they do. If you're interested in any of those things, I'm going to post my email address at the very end. Please feel free to ask about those. Okay. Theft prevention. We get a lot of stolen things on campus. Bikes are the biggest one. I'm going to just emphasize this very quickly. If you're riding a bike around campus, please have a lock. Specifically, try to use that U-lock as much as possible. Locking that front tire and the frame, as you see in this picture, around that U-lock, going around the frame, the front tire, and the bike rack itself. Make sure all three of those are inside of that U-lock. Please don't use wire locks. Please don't use chain locks. Those are very fast, easy to get off, just a pair of bolt cutters and they're gone. You'll see on this particular one that there are two U-locks that are locking this in place. That is a better method, but if you only do one, make sure you do that front one. Okay, the last big point that I'm gonna get on, and I'm gonna answer some questions, but unfortunately, our international students get targeted by scams a lot, meaning someone is going to call you, somebody is going to email you, somebody might be trying to get you on Craigslist because you look for buying something. But the thing is that if it feels like it's too good to be true, it probably is. Also, if someone calls you and they're threatening, saying that I am going to deport you, we are going to deport you, we are with the US federal police, or we're with the CSU police, or we're with, they say a whole lot of things. And what they'll say is that if you do not get this taken care of, we have a warrant out for your arrest. And usually they won't even say what the warrant's for, but they will say we have a warrant out for your arrest. When we pick you up, you're going to be deported unless you give us prepaid credit cards over the phone right now. And they're going to be very forceful. They're going to be very loud. They're going to try to yell at you. They're going to scare you. They're going to might say some things that they figured out about you online. That said, they're lying. There is no police agency in the United States that does this. There is no federal agency that does this. No one will call you on the phone and tell you that you're going to get deported. If you ever have a question about that, if you ever have something going on, our international programs can help you out. If you ever feel that this does not feel right, this does not feel safe, and you would like help, please give us a call at the police department. If they're very persuasive and they say, it seems like it's real, you can tell them that you can meet them at the CSU Police Department and we can be there as well to figure out if this is actually real. If it's, and I will tell you, I have yet to have somebody that is on the other side of that phone that's like, yeah, I'll meet you at the police department, because they know very well that they're lying. They know very well that they're committing a felony, and they know very well that if they come over, I am going to arrest them. So that being the case, if you ever feels too good to be true, or if it seems they go with that whole they're going to deport you thing, it's not real. If they start asking you for prepaid credit cards over the phone, it is not real. It is not a thing. Go ahead and hang up. If you want to call us just to make sure, call us, block the phone number, and we will figure it out. Okay. All right. I'm going to hit some questions. And that said, I said I'd have my email address up there, and there it is. So please feel free to write that down if you have any questions after today. All right. Got that one done. Got that one done. Oh, real quick, bikes. I covered this, but I want to make sure I covered it again. Bikes on CSU campus must ride in the roadway when the roadway is available. There are sidewalks around campus, but we're called them multi-use paths. You will see them with the yellow stripe down the middle. When you see that, that is a multi-use path. As a bicyclist, treat that like a roadway, meaning stay to the right as far as possible, unless you're passing. If you have to go into the other side, on the other side of that dotted line, you can, as long as you're not messing with anybody coming at you, so that if you have the freedom to do so. Okay. Bike is a foldable bike. Do I have to park it outside? Can I enter a classroom? So bikes are required to stay outside. If it is foldable enough that it can be put into a backpack, which sometimes they are, then you can take it in with you, but it is not allowed to be taken inside. That is more of a policy associated with the university. A lot of professors got together and were tired of the bikes being in the classrooms and being a nuisance. And so they got together and made sure that didn't happen. So can we drive cars after we've drank a little amount of liquor? So if you're over the age of 21 and you're consuming legally, what I'm going to tell you, state law says that if you are over a 0.08 blood alcohol level, you cannot drive. That is against the law. Technically, if you're over what's called a 0.05, you can. That is less of a crime, but it is still a crime in the state of Colorado. Most people don't know what that looks like in themselves. What I'm going to tell you is that if you feel like you are hindered, if you feel like you cannot respond, your reaction time is delayed, even slightly, it's not worth driving. There are so many other options. There's Uber, there's Lyft, there's other types of mass transit that you can use to get around. If you feel like you can't, and the thing about alcohol many times is that you'll get to a certain point where you'll start drinking and you're like, I don't feel right. This doesn't feel right. The problem is that if you continue to keep drinking and you get more, sometimes people will get that courage back and they'll say, oh, I'm good now. And they're even more drunk. So if you get to that point at all, either of those, please do not drink and drive. Alcoholic beverage should not be open to public. Alcoholic beverage, what is the definition of it, and should not be open to public? There is no percentage. There is no percentage of alcoholic beverage. If it has any alcohol in it at all, technically you can't consume it. Now, there is a couple of exceptions to that. If it's less than a 0.01%, which if you drink kombucha, that actually has something like that. It has trace alcohol in it. That is not considered an open container. But anything that is beer, wine, doesn't matter how much alcohol it is in it, unless it is a completely alcoholic-free beverage, cannot be opened, consumed in public. Do parking tickets and traffic tickets come up on it? Now, we do not do parking on campus. That is not the police department's responsibility. Traffic tickets in most cases will not as well, unless it's a very severe situation. unless it led to somebody getting injured, or if it was one of those DUI situations, then it will. But in most cases, no, and it depends on how severe of a background check. If it's a real intense background check, it will, but if it's just a lot of what the standard ones are, it will not. And how long does it stay on the record? Again, it depends on the severity. And if it's a very severe situation, if it's one of those DUIs, if somebody got injured, that's going to stay around possibly forever. If it's just a minor speeding, you were speeding about 10 or 12 over, that's not going to come up for very long. Okay. Can I get a green card to smoke marijuana for medical use? That is something that is an option. That said, that still violates federal law. So if you are here on a student visa, it still violates that currently. If that changes, that might change in the future. I don't know, but currently even the green card for medical use still violates federal law, even though it's for medical purposes. So that still can get your visa. I would say ask more international programs and the Office of General Counsel if you want extra answers on that, but currently that still does violate federal law. What's the regulation carrying self-defense items, pepper spray on CSU campus? Great question. So you can carry Sorry about that. Good thing we have two computers running. My computer died. I don't know why. It's trying to connect back up. To answer your question associated with weapons on campus, or better yet, self-defense items, pepper spray is allowed. If you have a self-defense taser item, it is also allowed. If it turns into a weapon, a firearm is not allowed on campus open carry. If you wish to go with a concealed carry weapons permit, that is something you could do. You have to look at more of that. That said, other than that, it is allowed, but it's only for purposes of self-defense. We've had some people on campus that have brought pepper spray and they play with it, and it turns into everyone within a room gets pepper sprayed. That's not a good thing. Don't do that. I'm running really low on time. We're pretty much out of time. I'm going to try to get one more question in. I appreciate everyone's questions. If I did not get your question answered, please send me an email through this email address right here so that I can get it answered. And it's also posted there. Please call us up. I'm going to talk about, is it safe to walk alone on campus after dark? So yes, campus is a very safe place. We have our Safe Walk program specifically that if you feel for some unknown reason you need it, absolutely. If you ever have this inkling, if you ever have this feeling that it just doesn't quite feel safe, please absolutely use it. Campus is a very safe community though. We have our police officers dedicated to doing that. That is what we do. That's what we try to keep doing, but that's really based off of also our community partnering with us. So if you ever see something that feels unsafe, don't be afraid to give us a call. If something that seems out of place, give the police department a call so we can address it, so we can look at it, and we can make sure that we stay all safe. I want to thank you all so much for your time. All of your questions are wonderful. All of your involvement is amazing. I apologize for those questions that I didn't get to. Please send those to me again at that email address. Thank you all. Good luck with what you're doing. I am so glad to bring you into the CSU family. I look forward to working with you. If you see me, say hi, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you so much.